Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive, fascinating, and honestly, kind of chilling corner of the internet. We're going to deconstruct what's basically become our modern-day digital campfire. Long before the internet, we all gathered around literal fires to share tales of the unknown, right? Warning each other about the dark. Well, today, that campfire is a screen. And those stories, they've evolved into this incredibly structured, massive ecosystem of digital horror.
Which brings us to the ultimate question we're trying to answer today. Why on earth do millions of people actively want to be terrified? We're going to look at the incredibly primal fear of home intrusion. That is arguably the ultimate violation of our most fundamental safe space, right? And how it's been paired with just massive, highly engaged audience scale. Look, we aren't talking about some tiny niche community here. We are talking about a full-blown mainstream obsession with true, frightening experiences.
To really grasp the scale of this, let's look at a staggering number: 1,067,236. That is the exact number of views a single piece of content titled 3 Scary True Home Intrusion Horror Stories racked up in a remarkably short amount of time. Released on September 2nd, 2025, it pulled in those views plus around 33,000 likes in just 9 months. Think about that for a second. Over 1 million people willingly clicked on a title promising them true stories about someone breaking into a home. Scenarios like, being a teenager left alone for the weekend only to hear that unmistakable sound of shattered glass downstairs.
Section 1. The Architect of Fear, Exploring Mr. Nightmare's Empire.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how massive this empire actually is. 7.1 million. That is Mr. Nightmare's subscriber count. Dropping a metric like 7.1 million really validates the cultural relevance of this whole phenomenon. People aren't just passively stumbling across a scary story on their feed. No, they are actively subscribing to an empire of dread. They want this stuff delivered to them on a regular basis.
But hey, if you want to contribute to that empire, there are rules. If you want to send in a personal, true story to his email, Mr. Nightmare is completely explicit about this. He says anything with poorly structured sentences and grammar will not be read, so please just make them neat and understandable. I actually love this so much because it adds a touch of everyday humanity to all this terror. It turns out even horror narrators absolutely hate bad grammar. It's a surprisingly strict standard for a channel dealing in raw, terrifying true stories.
Section 2. Mundane Nightmares, Subverting the Safe and Familiar.
So the true genius of this content isn't just cheap jump scares, it's entirely psychological. The creator completely thrives on contrasting our innocent expectations with terrifying realities. For example, the specific home intrusion stories we're analyzing explicitly state they take place on summer trips. You're expecting fireworks and relaxation, but instead, the narrative plunges you right into the perspective of someone waking up at 2 a.m. in a strange vacation rental, hearing footsteps creeping up the stairs. The genre intentionally keeps us off balance by taking these supposedly safe, fun situations, like a chill summer vacation or a 4th of July fireworks celebration, and just injecting them with the visceral reality of true danger.
Section 3. An Ecosystem of Anxiety, Categorizing Internet Fear.
Let's broaden our lens a bit beyond just one creator and act like digital sociologists for a minute. When you analyze the titles in this massive horror ecosystem, these super specific patterns immediately pop out. Audiences absolutely flock to location-based fears, so stories set in lighthouses, the remote countryside, parks, or out on RV camping trips. But they are equally obsessed with situational vulnerabilities. Think online dating gone wrong, hitchhiking, or that incredibly primal fear of just hearing unexplained sounds in the house or the feeling of being followed.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how millions of views are distributed across these highly specific, very human anxieties. Just think about this data. Trucker Horror Stories pulls an astonishing 2.6 million views, with Hitchhiking Horror Stories right behind it at 2.5 million. Even a super mundane concept like Sounds in the House commands nearly 1 million views. So the numbers clearly prove a point here. The more specific and relatable the anxiety, the larger the audience it commands.
And obviously, Mr. Nightmare is far from the only one tending this campfire. There's a much broader ecosystem of channels out there actively feeding this massive appetite. Heavy hitters like Chilling Scares pull in millions of views just for burglar footage, while channels like Let's Read, The Silent Dread, and Broccoli Animations are carving out their own huge audiences alongside creators like Monoscaling, Secrets Room, and Beesbusta.
Whether they're getting millions of views or just a couple thousand, this is an entire cottage industry built literally entirely on true, terrifying stories.
Section 4. Why we watch, ruining our own sleep.
So, we've seen the data, we've seen how they subvert everyday life, but why do millions of us actively seek out these true stories despite the very real anxiety they cause? Well, the crucial point here is an entirely counterintuitive phenomenon. People are actually using these terrifying compilations for background ambience and sleep. Seriously. Take the channel Whispered Diaries, 3+ hours of true rainy alone-at-night horror stories has over 500,000 views. It's such a fascinating paradox of the modern internet. Millions of people actively seek out true horror, specifically tailored to the mood of being alone at night in the rain, just to relax and drift off.
It's honestly incredible to think about how we process fear today. We literally take the worst, true moments of someone's life, make sure they're wrapped up in good grammar, and use them as a lullaby. Which kind of leaves us with this final haunting question to reflect on. Are our everyday, mundane moments, a simple summer trip, an RV campout, or just hearing a weird sound in the house, are they just waiting to become someone else's next true horror story? Definitely think about that the next time you hear a floorboard creak. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your curiosity sharp.